Welcome to today's tutorial where we are going to be using DIY washi tape to create a mixed media collage art piece. Let's start with the tape. I'm using a tape called POUR, P-O-U-R, but it's also called medical tape, and I'm using several sizes. I've attached each to a glass mat, and I'm just using a piece of palette paper to protect each strip of tape while I'm working on one. For this first one, I'm just going to use some black acrylic paint and a stencil. I love these makeup brushes for this purpose because they help to smooth out the paint underneath the stencil, so I don't end up with a lot of raised lines. So I'm going to be doing a couple of things to this particular piece of tape. My goal is just to get a variety of different tapes that I can collage with. It's easy to move your stencil over and finish the other side if your stencil isn't long enough. But I just challenged myself to use a single color, and so I decided that I would use all black and white for each of my tapes. This one I'm going to add something to, so I wanted to make sure that I have some contrast in my collage. So I'm going to make sure to have a few solid black backgrounds. You can see on this one that I'm just using a stamp and stamping this image randomly. I love typography. I love stenciling, just all the things. But you can also doodle and do whatever you would like on your tapes. The goal here is just to get a variety. And so this one is just some little circle stamps or circle stencil that I'm using. And on this one, I'm going to stencil in just a little floral design. I move it over just to fill in any gaps. And again, I'm just keeping this all in black and white. I'm going to do a smaller strip in a solid background. And once all of my tapes are dry, then I can add the finishing touches. For that first one that I used a little stencil and a stamp. And so this one, I'm just stamping some more. I want a variety of designs, so I don't want any of my tapes to be alike. So let's go back to that first one that we did, and I'm going to layer some typography behind the stencil. So I had this little script stamp, and I'm just going to stamp over that. I'm going to use this same stamp on the solid black piece, but I'm going to stamp it in white. So it's still keeping my black and white color scheme, and I really love how this turned out for this particular piece. I would have used navy or green or just anything, but I thought for the video that black and white certainly gives enough contrast for you to get the idea. So here I'm just using an acrylic paint pen, and on that small little strip, I'm just drawing some lines. And once I'm all done with this, I have this variety of tapes to work with. For my substrate, I'm working on an 8x10 wood panel, and I've added just a few colors of metallic paints, and I'm going to smooth that on, but then I'm going to blend them all together with a piece of plastic wrap. So I wanted a little bronze, a little gold. It actually ends up showing up as more of a wood tone background, and I actually like how it turned out. It wasn't quite the metallic showing through that I thought it would be, but this ended up working out really well. And I added some more gold at the top, so you can just add, take away, whitewash over it if you don't like it, whatever you need to do. But here comes the fun part. So I'm just going to tear little pieces of tape, and I'm going to apply them all over my board. And so the tape tears really easily. I like to keep it on my glass mat and just tear little pieces as I go along. And I'm really just looking for visual interest. I don't want to put too many of the same designs next to each other. And I think you can see now how that metallic background actually makes it look more like a wood tone. And here's what we've got. So I cut a piece of wet strength tissue paper, a little larger than my substrate, my board, and I'm just creasing on each edge so that it gives me a guide, because I'm going to be stamping on this, embossing it, and layering it on top. I used Versamark ink and a butterfly, and a floral stamp. I kind of laid them out on my paper where I think I wanted them to go and then picked them up with an acetate sheet. Versamark ink works as a glue for your embossing powder, and I find this little barren tool to be super helpful in getting a smooth, consistent transfer of my stamped images. So I'll lift that off of the tissue paper, and now it's time for some embossing powder. I chose a gold powder, and I am using this all over. I think I forgot to tell you that I used the little static tool. That was the little thing I was rubbing over my tissue, and that's just to keep my embossing powder from going everywhere. So here I'm using my embossing gun, and I just want to make sure that I keep that gun moving because it's super hot and I don't want it to burn my tissue. In the end, I think it's a really beautiful metallic design, and now it was time to attach that tissue to my substrate. I love how the tissue will make the background a little more subtle, but it doesn't take away from it at all. So I'm just using my decoupage medium and a brush and trying to get a good even coat. And then I'm going to smooth this in place with some plastic wrap. I really am loving the contrast of this. It's not my usual colors to work with, but I just wanted to challenge myself with the limited color palette. I'm going to seal this tissue in place, let it dry, and then sand off the edges. And we're off to a great start. I wanted a quote for this piece, and so I cut a little piece of tea bag paper, and I'm using my palette knife and some parchment acrylic paint to give it a background. The tea bag paper is very, very transparent, and so I wanted to make sure that my quote was going to pop. Once my quote was all stamped, I went ahead and used my same decoupage medium to apply my quote in place, and I like that it gives a little bit of a break to a very busy design, and I happen to love this quote so much. So I did seal everything, and then I decided that actually I wanted my sides to be black, and it ended up being a great finishing touch to this piece. I hope you enjoyed this project, and you'll join me next Tuesday for studio sessions at 2. Happy creating!